Over the past 6 months, Yakima Coroner Jim Curtice has been on a leave of absence. After months of speculation, Curtice wrote in a statement to the citizens of Yakima County regarding his separation as the county coroner. In his statement, he wrote the following: "It became apparent that I was in need of counseling, medical intervention, and ongoing treatment for post-traumatic stress and work-related health concerns."
Yeah, no, he's doing well and he's moving forward. The separation from Yakima County and the settlement is allowing him to move forward and really focus on issues that will allow, hopefully, to bring some healing and some restoration to Jim and to his family.
I don't think anyone wishes ill will to anyone who suffers from some of the addictions and mental health issues that anyone in first responding to tragic events experiences. Lots of us are touched by these types of events, and we certainly wish him well. But the way he reacted was a disgrace. The taxpayers deserve better, and ultimately, I think it's fair because he's being held accountable. Wish him the best, but want to make sure that there's no more money going out the door to him from the taxpayers of Yakima County.
I don't wish him any ill will and hope he gets the treatment and help that he needs, but he's not suited to be coroner anymore.
Later in the statement, Curtice wrote the following: "Over the course of time and ongoing treatment, it has become apparent that I will be unable to continue in my position as county coroner." Curtice's lawyer Bill Pickett of Larson, Griffey & Pickett PLLC worked with Yakima County attorneys to create a separation agreement. All 3 county commissioners signed it, along with former county coroner Curtice. In doing so, Curtice resigned while the county paid him upwards of $66,000, continuation of health insurance benefits, and justice, the Yakima County Coroner's Office cadaver dog.
Well, so resignation was a part of the settlement, and resignation was necessary to complete the separation. And that was always being discussed, but in terms of just I think there were a lot of misguided calls for the coroner to step aside, to resign, without any consideration as to how one would do that. And so resignation became a part of the settlement process, but resignation as an outright demand by someone for Mr. Curtice to resign was never part of the equation. That was never going to be considered, period. It was confounded by a lot of efforts, some of them very misguided and somewhat foolish, in an effort to, for instance, demand a recall.
The commissioners did have Mr. Curtice's attorney reach out through to our corporate counsel who represents us early on. And I know for my part, it was critically important that no matter what happens, I did not want him to have more funds from the taxpayers than I felt was due. He had been taking his monthly wage without doing the work. And in my mind, it was a pretty egregious act. I think that once you are elected, the taxpayers expect that you do the work. And it's a little bit different than an employee-employer relationship in that sense, where a lot of times you'll have folks say that they want to have some kind of remedy for being made whole. But I felt in this case, because he was elected, that the taxpayers didn't owe him anything. So it was incredibly important to me that I had great concerns that he was wanting to potentially file suit against the county in the future. And the county is the taxpayers. And so my main concern was making sure that we had an agreement that denied him the opportunity to sue the taxpayers of Yakima County in the future, which is exactly where we ended up.
And that was the key. That was the key ingredient, because from the get-go, the effort was an effort that was aimed at trying to find a win-win for both parties. That is, for the county and the need to have the coroner's office up and running, and also for Mr. Curtice, who was, over time, it became aware that he was not going to be able to return to the coroner's duties and to the office. And once that became apparent, we started working on a separation that would be feasible for both parties.
I mean, there was a very real prospect that he could wait out the next year and a half and continue to draw a salary from home without working.
Regarding Jim Curtice's resignation as coroner, I think there was, for me personally, has been a lot of frustration just in the sense of how long it took us to get to this point. As you know, there was a settlement agreement that we entered into with the coroner, and I'm just glad that both parties were able to, the county as well as him, able to come to terms and frankly do what needs to be done so that we can move forward and give the taxpayers what they want and what they deserve. So I'm just glad it's over.
And really, it was a couple months in when I realized what I needed to leverage, and it was the dog. Mr. Curtice had a very strong connection with the dog. And as soon as I realized that, it was important to me to leverage the dog to get him to sign off and resign and ultimately never be able to sue the taxpayers of Yakima County.
Frankly, that was a county asset that needed some monetary compensation for. We weren't just going to allow that canine to the coroner to hold on to it. And so as you saw in the settlement, there was a monetary value assigned to that canine and to allow the Mr. Curtice to hold that canine moving forward. So that was one of the things that took some time back and forth.
There were two things ultimately that I wanted to make sure that I obtained for the taxpayers. That the coroner could not sue the taxpayers in the future. And more importantly, that the commissioners retain the opportunity to have this meeting with you right now. In most settlement cases, there is a joint agreement for non-disparagement. And certainly I'm not going to disparage, but what I will say is that I did not want to be muzzled in any way in telling the taxpayers the truth, which is that the actions of Mr. Curtice I find to be disgraceful and egregious. And I'm glad that we're able to find a remedy which prohibits him from suing the taxpayers and taking any more of the money he does not deserve.
Do you think that him taking half of his annual salary for the year is fair?
As I said, I think it's the best that we were going to get as a county for a resignation immediately. Am I happy that we had to do that? No, but I'm also realistic and real that the other option on the table was to not negotiate and not enter into a settlement that would cost the taxpayers way more than the $60,000 that was in the settlement.
Absolutely. I think what would have been more fair would have been him resigning immediately. As soon as he placed himself on leave, he should have resigned. But given the results of his denial of what was doing the right thing for the taxpayers, it was clear that we needed to, in my mind, leverage whatever we could to force a resignation.
I guess I can't speak for the board individually, but I think probably if you were to speak to us, we would have been happy not to pay anything as far as the settlement is concerned, because we felt that there was a lot of damage done to the office, to the county by his actions. But we also needed to think about what was really in the best interest of the county, and really our goal was to be able to restore the office of the coroner to a position where people can have faith and confidence in it.
You don't want people broke and without insurance and unable to look after whatever needs they have. You want to have people separated out in a way that's positive, that's honoring, that's not demeaning, and certainly helpful to them and to the departing agency as a productive means of functioning in the world today.
We should expect our elected officials to be held to a high standard. And certainly that's morally and ethically making strong judgments because you're acting on behalf of the taxpayers. He placed the taxpayers at risk daily. And as soon as that was acknowledged by him personally, he needed to resign. And I think more than anything, what was disgraceful was how he reacted to acknowledging his own deficiencies and serving the public. It's one thing to have deficiencies. We're all human. We all make mistakes. But to not acknowledge that it was an incorrect course of action to continue collecting a paycheck when you knew you weren't doing the job, that's egregious.
So I'm thankful for Mr. Brusick's office, thankful for the opportunity to work with them, and very thankful that Yakima County and Mr. Curtice were able to come to a resolution that included a settlement and a resignation that allowed both parties to move forward. That's the way it's supposed to work.
I'm glad that we finally got to this point. It's something we've been hoping for quite some time. As you know, as a Board of Commissioners, we had asked him to resign back in last October. And so, as have other elected officials. And so we're glad that we could finally get to a point where we could come to terms and he was willing to resign.
There was a recall effort brought forward to the county by 3 petitioners. After months of work, it was in the signature gathering phase when the former coroner resigned.
A waste of time, a waste of money that was never going to be fruitful, and it actually, in a way, interfered and only lengthened out the process of negotiating a resolution. But you can't, unfortunately, you can't really stop people from doing what they think is somehow going to be the expedient way to do things if they have some agenda to try to demand a recall. But that was not a positive step at all. It was actually foolish.
No, I'm just grateful that we can put it behind us. And I want to thank the public for their efforts in going through the recall effort. Certainly having the recall effort be so successful and clear that it would have been a success was one of the things that made it much easier to negotiate and force his resignation. So I do appreciate all of those folks who participated actively in that.
You have folks who have, for whatever reason, some idea that they're somehow going to generate something that's helpful by starting a recall process. Absolute fantasy. That doesn't, one, it's a huge waste of time, it's a huge waste of money that ultimately is going nowhere. The better course, and that what happened here, is that a lawyer representing Mr. Curtice and a lawyer representing the county were able to put their heads together and work toward an amicable resolution on the matter, despite a lot of distraction, a lot of misguided direction, and a lot of blustering around from various folks who thought they were doing something, I suspect thought they were doing something good, and in fact all they were doing was wasting time, wasting money, and then of no value whatsoever.
The recall effort cost the Yakima County Auditor's Office $3,120 for 64 hours of work verifying signatures.
I was thankful that many in the county saw fit to start a recall petition against him, and I do think ultimately that it was probably the pressure and the very real threat of that recall occurring that got him to the table finally to come to terms with us.
Speaking of the recall, I know that you donated some money to it. Do you think that's money well spent now that the coroner's resigned?
Well, it was the best decision at the time. You know, I think I appreciate anybody who supported that effort by either gathering signatures or contributing financially to it. I think it did pay off, even though we never got it to the ballot. The recall petition effort helped us get to the point where we got the desired outcome, which is to have the coroner resign from office.
On Monday, the county commissioners appointed Marshall Slight to be the temporary county coroner. Slight has been working at the coroner's office for years and actually ran against Mr. Curtice in the most recent coroner's election.
Well, yes, and I can tell you, to be honest, I'm very grateful that we have Marshall Slight today. Since Mr. Curtice was unavailable since last August, Marshall Slight has been in that office every day. He has not taken a day off since last August.
So Marshall Slight has been acting as coroner since Mr. Curtice put himself on paid leave, and the commissioners did appoint him as interim. He's done an incredible job. I think it's a testament to the kind of work ethic that we hope and expect that we see from employees of any business, and certainly in government. I think he's done a phenomenal service to the community, and I'm grateful that he was willing to spend so much of his time, because truly he was running that office with small help, part-time help, and I think that, again, it is another example of why Mr. Curtice's actions were incredibly selfish.
He has been a tireless, devoted employee of the coroner's office, and so we are grateful for his efforts, for his dedication. He has gone above and beyond to make sure that office continued to run and function as it should.
You know, there's been a lot of public scrutiny over the coroner's office, right?
Yeah.
Just with what's happened here, particularly what's happened in the jail, and some back and forth. And I would say with Mr. Marshall Slight, I think our community knows who he is. He's not, he ran for coroner previously. He's also been doing the job, frankly, for the past 6 months, and he's ran that department very, very well. And so he hasn't missed a beat. And I do think that the public should accept the fact that we're moving on. Mr. Jim Curtice has resigned, and that your county commissioners have every bit of faith that the coroner's office will carry forward its duties and do it in the right way.
He handles the families, he handles the staff very well. He's very conscientious and competent, and glad to have him. And I was happy to be able to appoint him as interim coroner today.
In his statement, Curtice wrote the following: "Upon my departure, please know that I have full confidence in the current staff, as they are knowledgeable, well-trained individuals doing very difficult work for the people of Yakima County."
Marshall Slight's been in the county coroner's office for quite some time. When Mr. Coroner Jim Curtice had to kind of step away for some time, we assigned him as a department lead, so it allowed him to kind of continue the functions of the coroner's office. But now that Mr. Jim Curtice has officially resigned as coroner, we as the Board of County Commissioners have the ability to appoint an interim coroner, which is what we did and adopted today. So Marshall Slight is our interim county coroner, while we wait for our county Republican Party to submit its 3 names for the commissioners to entertain and select from.
I will tell you that at this point, the process is that since it's a partisan office, meaning that it's tied to a political party, the Republican Party of Yakima County has the opportunity for its precinct committee officers to gather together, which they will do on May 14th, and forward the names of 3 candidates for the position to us as county commissioners, and we get the opportunity to make that final decision.
I do not think it's a black eye to the office. This is an individual elected. So all of our electeds are individuals. And I think that Mr. Curtice should stand alone for his actions, and it does not reflect in any way on anyone in the coroner's office.
Even though he is no longer the county coroner, Curtice still has to follow through with his criminal case.
Any separation agreement or settlement, for that matter, that arises, typically both parties have to agree that the agreement itself is not to be construed as some sort of admission of fault and or wrongful and or criminal conduct, period. And in this case, Yakima County and Mr. Curtice both mutually agreed that this settlement agreement and the separation that followed was not to be construed as any kind of an admission in that arena. And that is very, very typical and very standard.